Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It's Wednesday, the 22nd of October. Thank you for joining me. More windy weather and heavy rain is on the way as we go into Thursday. But for Wednesday, we've got a bit of a breather in many places. It's still a bit windy and there's been a bit of patchy rain and showers around coming in off the Tasman Sea. But really, we are seeing drier weather in many places and lighter winds in many places, although still a bit windy through the mountains, ranges, exposed coastal areas here and there. Most of the thunderstorm activity coming out of Australia, and that is due to low pressure that is starting to form here, and that is part of the reason why, well, is the main reason why tomorrow we're going to be seeing those winds really ramp up as this low pressure energy moves in and interacts with the big high up here. But the high pressure zone at the moment dragging down warmer airflows, including for the South Island, where we're seeing that subtropical in some areas, nor'wester or westerly wind continue on. So let's start with the wind gust maps. We've got some gusty weather coming through. As we look at this evening, not looking too bad for most places. It's still blustery through the mountains, all the way up along the eastern side or through the main divide. But out to the east, not as bad as it was yesterday, that's for sure. So lighter winds going into tonight. But as we go overnight tonight, look at the difference as you wake up tomorrow. Very windy weather kicking in at some point overnight. It might even start this evening for some of you. Then as we go into tomorrow, once the sun is up, that's when the worst of the winds come in. This line here around Canterbury's mountains shows the purple going up towards white, which means once into the white shading, normally we see that around tropical cyclones and typhoons. So that shading means that the winds could be gusting over 200 kilometres an hour in the mountains. We've already seen some gusts over 200 kilometres an hour around New Zealand this week. So another big burst here. But around the coastline, to begin with, the winds are north to northeasterly and not as bad. But as we go through Thursday, the worst of those winds are going to push further to the coastline, as you see here a few hours later. Now look, the worst of those winds may still move south or north a wee bit, and our mountains and ranges do change the flow as well. But for the most part, windy weather starts inland and then pushes further to the coastline and further into the North Island, in the lower half of the North Island, as we go through Thursday. And by the afternoon time or sort of late morning, those winds go right out to the coast as the nor'wester properly comes on through over the whole South Island and into the North Island, where the worst of those winds are moving into Waited Upper, Wellington, maybe parts of Manawatu and Hawke's Bay. Tomorrow evening, the winds start to ease back again. It's still blustery, there could still be gales, but it's not as bad as we go towards nighttime. So 12 hours later at 7 p.m. versus 7 a.m. tomorrow, hopefully we will start to see the worst of that wind event coming to an end. So here is the bigger picture. This is a 24-hour rainfall map. So this goes from today to tomorrow, showing up to 150 millimetres for some parts of the west coast, or at least 100 millimetres in the purple shading there. Windy weather, and that will help push some of the rain over the mountains, as well as we got that low pressure moving through. So there could be some rain that spills over, but really many eastern areas aren't seeing great rainfall totals, but there could be some in there, good for any of those annoying fires we've been seeing. And in the North Island, we've got patchy rain or showers starting to move on through, but the pale blue for most of you shows that it's not a huge amount of wet weather. Now, as we go to Friday, that front sort of clears the country. That's it there. So that's why Thursday's got some patchy rain around the north. But as we go into Friday, drier skies, lighter winds for many of you. Still windy, though, for the lower South Island, where the polar boundary comes back in again. That means your temperatures are dropping as we go into the weekend. And it stays that way on Saturday for Otago, Fiordland, South Westland, Southland, Stewart Island. These areas are going to be colder with showers around. It's still going to have plenty of dry spells for some areas, but it's a bit showery on the western and southern parts of the South Island. Also got some showers out here in the Tasman. They're likely to come into the North Island at some point. Keep an eye on the rain radar on Saturday. Eastern areas mainly dry, if not completely dry, as they are again on Sunday, with that polar boundary still stuck along the west coast. It might even slide right up to about Greymouth. So you'll feel that colder air really coming through. It'll be cooler around Canterbury, but because it's a westerly, it's not usually too bad for you, but you may notice the temperatures are down a bit. And in the North Island, it's westerly driven, whether it's a nor'wester or a sou'wester or just westerly. Track the origins though, it's coming from north of New Zealand. So it won't be very cold on Sunday for most of the North Island. Labor Day Monday. All right, so again, this is a 24-hour rainfall map, so it looks a little more dramatic with the rainfall than the usual maps we show you. The North Island, 24 hours worth of rain up to lunchtime, shows very little, just a few showers coming through for the North Island. Get into the South Island though, that rain really sets in the further southwards you go. Could be over 100 millimetres in some areas, going from Sunday into Monday. And once more, the eastern side of the country is the driest, as is the top part of the North Island, with those windy conditions returning again, especially around central New Zealand, moving up into the South Island. This is the afternoon map. The winds have kind of cleared away from the south, more into the eastern side of the North Island. Also windy coming off the Tasman Sea for coastal areas in the west as well. So if you're in a tent, that'll be a bit of a windy day for you. This could still change. The Monday map has changed a couple of times this week, so we'll lock that in for you with more detail in our Thursday and Friday updates. And here is Tuesday's map, also showing 24 hours of rainfall as that front moves into the North Island, bringing some rain or showers. Again, eastern, northern areas of the country not seeing as much rain around, and even Southland not seeing as much wet weather, which you'll be happy about. But here is the polar boundary coming back in again. Here is the big picture of that exact same map. So that polar southerly comes right up, north of Sydney, offshore from it, but right up north of Sydney. So that is a significant colder change sweeping in. But look, there is high pressure over here, and I want to end on a positive note for you, although it's not locked in. But November 1st, we could be seeing a big high coming in around October 31st, Halloween, and then going into the start of the new month. High pressure at this stage is forecast for New Zealand. Whether it lingers very long, probably not. Everything's moving through quickly from the west to the east, but we'll be monitoring that one. Hopefully gives you a little bit of a spring in your step, seeing some high pressure on the way, although I know those of you on the eastern North Island, you don't want that, you want rain. So hopefully low pressure like that one up here can drop down and bring some easterly driven rain. Too far out to lock that in or even really be talking about that too much. But that's what we're looking for along the eastern side of the North Island. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with our next update.